If you ever watch Western movies, they're very, very insightful, especially if they're period pieces, because they are able to show you the social backdrop of a lot of ways in which people operated during that particular time in history. One thing I wanted to point out is during the time of Reconstruction, a lot of people were headed out west, homesteading and striving to acquire a type of land, and also setting up little small townships. And this is also right prior to and during the time of the building of the railroads to cross the country. You had a lot of cowboy towns, and these little towns, there was a lot of crime during that time because people, number one, was able to just openly carry guns, and you had legal prostitution during that time. You had a lot of stuff going on during that time that was basically a lawless land. That's why they call it the Wild Wild West. Now, in order to try to establish some type of order or structure or law in these in these lawless townships, they set up a sheriff. And what the sheriff was responsible for was going around and striving to assert some type of law and order. And a lot of times, because of the large percentage of a criminal element, the sheriff was outgunned and outmanned. So a lot of times you would see a group of thugs come riding in on their horses, and that caused a problem for that township. Whenever you check out any type of Western films, that is one of the main things that they focus on. They focus on the lawlessness during that time, and there being a problem with criminals coming into a particular type of area, and the struggle between striving to maintain law in a lawless environment. Or you would also see people striving to wrestle away the land from the original people that was living during that time, and it was this so-called cowboy and Indian thing going on. But all of it was focused upon the lawlessness that was going on during the West. And like I said, the sheriff was usually outgunned and outmanned. So you also see some of the same thing that was going on in different parts of the United States later on in the history of this country. But during that time, in order to address the issue, what the sheriff would do is deputize people. And what deputizing is the sheriff would get some of his boys together or somebody that he trusted, and he would go over to his sheriff's office, his jail, and get some stars out of his drawer, and then go to some of his boys or somebody he trusted and just pin the star to their chest and just say, "You're a deputy now," and you're responsible for helping me maintain some type of law and order. Sometimes he would deputize people sitting down at the saloon. Just go in there, pin a star to his chest and say, I want you to be down with me to try to, we outgun, we outman, this, that, and the third. And the problem with that is that person didn't sign up for it. Not only did they not sign up for it, but they were not taught anything, and they were not trained in the proper procedures and protocols of being able to maintain some type of law and order. They're just a common citizen, and you've seen the same type of mentality happen during like the Cocaine Cowboy Wars that was going on in the 80s down there in Florida. And you had such a large influx of Colombian cocaine and cocaine coming from other different places and out of the country, and the police down there were completely outgunned and outmanned. So at first they had a certain type of standard that they had people adhere to when it comes to bringing them on the police force in order to fight this crime. But things got so bad, they kept lowering their standards, lowering the standards, to the point where it was people who had dirt on their criminal record that was able to operate as police officers. And that philosophically was the same during the time of the West, where they were just deputizing people. So you had all of these people on the police force who was just given stars, and out there so-called trying to fight crime and all this other stuff, and it got so bad that after they got a little bit control over the type of drug wars that was going on during that time, they had to end up firing over 80% of the police officers that they hired because they was involved in the same criminal element. And that was the problem with deputizing people. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because a lot of times we operate in the same way. I've done it before, where there may be things that we're dealing with in life and we may not take the actual time and invest in a person enough to actually teach them and train them properly before we deputize them to take a position in our life, whether that is platonically, as just a friend, whether that is romantically, as a companion, or whether that's a business partnership. And like I said, a lot of the times the people didn't even sign up for nothing like that. So now you put yourself at risk, whereas this person has not been taught, they have not been trained properly, so you're allowing them to operate within your cipher with the same level of authority to make decisions, but they're not educated decisions because they weren't taught. They're not educated decisions because they weren't trained. So now you're putting the whole system, whether it's a business, whether it's a companionship, whether it's just a platonic friendship, at risk because you ended up deputizing somebody that was not qualified. And the important thing is, regardless of whether it's a platonic relationship, a friendship, or companionship, or business relationship, you need to know first and foremost that that person signed up for it. You know, and after you found out that they signed up for it, you really have to put them through a process, or to see if they actually went through the process of being taught properly and trained to take that position beside you. Because if not, then there will come a time where they will be irresponsible. There will come a time where they won't be accountable at the same degree you are, because you're the one that was taught. You're the one that was actually trained. And if you put a person that's not qualified in that position, that will put the whole cipher at risk. So I hope that that made some sense to some of you, and that you take time to properly teach somebody and educate them before you allow them to take a serious position in your life like that, regardless of what type of elements, whether it's criminal, whether that's some type of stress, anxiety, whether you're striving to make some money and be successful in a business opportunity. You need to know that a person is qualified. Because if they're not qualified, the only thing that they'll be able to do is disqualify you. And you don't want to put yourself in that position, because ultimately you are the one that was really responsible and accountable for that, because you ended up pinning a star to this person's chest that they never even earned. And like I said, check out some of those Western flicks. You know, them old John Wayne joints like Big Jake and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, or you know, Red River, and, you know, a lot of those different films, because they give you good insight into that particular period of time. And it's a social study. You know, a lot of those same type of decisions, principles, and procedures people still use today in a lot of different aspects of their life. So, like I said, don't just go out there deputizing people and putting them in a position in your life, marrying them or starting this type of business partnership, or even just hanging out and stuff like that, because you're going to put yourself in a position where it's going to come back on you. And you want to make sure that this person has equal responsibility and accountability for all of the decisions that's going on in that friendship or companionship or business. Peace.